Hello coaster lovers. So if you've seen my SeaWorld Orlando ranked video, I did throw a little hint that I'm done with Busch Gardens Tampa. And that's because I got a good feel of the park and it's starting to get a little boring since I rode all the coasters except for one a couple times. Now I can accurately rank the park's coasters. And before we start, there's going to be some major hot takes coming up. And I want to throw a quick mention for Scorpion real quick. First of all, rest in peace. And second, I'm not including this because it's defunct. And it is sad knowing that this is not going to operate ever again. I would also like to say this is based off my coaster list. And this is my opinion. But let's start the list off with the kiddie coaster, Air Grover. This is the only roller coaster at Busch Gardens Tampa that I haven't ridden. In my perspective, it's not worth a couple minutes of embarrassment just to get an extra credit. The layout is okay for a kiddie coaster, and the front car of Grover looks pretty cool. So moving on, the number 8 spot is given to Cobra's Curse. This is a milestone coaster for me, number 50. It introduced me to spinning coasters, so it's nothing too crazy. To start this off, I love the Cobra statue next to the drop. You really feel like you can touch the fang while you're banking outwards. And going through the backwards double helix is fun since you dip down every second. And the spinning part is pretty cool as well. It was exactly what I was expecting. I also got way too many rides on this thanks to my neighbor. He loved it. And if you're curious, I got 5 rides in total, and 4 of those were during a marathon, and it surprisingly had a noticeable shimmy throughout the experience. It was weird, but the next coaster on the list has a more noticeable shimmy, and it's with the brand new Phoenix Rising. I will say first thing, I'm not going to upload off-ride footage of this coaster. All of the shots I took were at night and you can barely see the train. But anyway, I only got to ride this one time and it was fine for what it is. The overbank over the entrance had very little whip and the first drop is unique. You get very weak floater airtime. The restraints do pinch your thighs if you're an older guest and the train rattles pretty badly throughout the entire ride course. It really sucks that new B&Ms are rougher than their older ones, and heck, even SheiKra is smoother than this thing, and that coaster is 20 years older. But I do like the station where it has the screens on one side of the station. It's okay if I had to sum it up. Now this is where the hot takes come into play. I decided to place SheiKra at number 6. This is my least favorite B&M at Busch Gardens. This just didn't really do it for me. The first drop in the back had some great yanks, so did the drop in the tunnel. That part surprised me. I also liked the splashdown as the cherry on top. But besides that, I was underwhelmed every time I rode SheiKra, and I only rode this 3 times, and it was once in October of 2023, once last February, and once in May. I'm actually pretty content with my 3 rides. But next on the list is a little bit better, but when it comes to smoothness, this place is at the bottom of the list, and number 5 is given to Kumba. If you focus on the rattle, this coaster is terrible. It's way too shaky, but I think it's like that because I rode Kumba on the outside seats, and I've heard the inner seats are smoother, so I'll try that again next time I go to Busch Gardens. But as for the ride, it's so intense. The positive G's never stop coming, and the 0G roll, aka the hell roll, is wild, and the vertical loop has some pretty good positive as well, but the rattle is a thorn on your side. The rattle is really bad when you're rising up into the Cobra roll. I couldn't think during that element, and the double corkscrews are pretty okay as well. Overall, not the biggest fan. So next up was a last minute switch, but I placed Cheetah Hunt at number 4. At the last minute, I switched this and the next coaster, but this is a great ride. If you're not a fan of high positive G's, then you'll like Cheetah Hunt. The launches aren't too crazy, and you do get some pull on each launch. The second launch is the weakest though, but it's not forceless. But after that is the Wing Catcher Tower. You get great airtime rising into the element and dropping off of it. And the Hardline Roll has some surprising hang time, but the restraints dig into your shoulders during that element. They are not the most comfortable restraints, but you don't really have to worry about head banging. It's a pretty smooth coaster. And I almost forgot to mention about the S-bends towards the end. That's a fun moment on the coaster. I did get 5 rides on this, and 4 of those were during a marathon thanks to my neighbor. But next up we got is the most underrated coaster here at Busch Gardens, and I'm referring to Tigris. I will eventually upload off-ride footage of this, only when one of my videos doesn't perform well. And yes, I take Tigris over Kumba any day, and I have that opinion because Tigris is an underrated ride. It was way more intense than I was expecting, and I've heard the comfort collars suck before riding, but I don't mind them personally, and the Hardline Roll was way scarier than I expected. It does feel like your restraint will fail and you're going to fall right out, but you don't, so you're fine. This exceeded expectations for me. I only got 4 rides as well. Next up we got is my favorite B&M at Busch Gardens, and it's Montu, the king of inverts. I love this coaster so much, and I'm very happy with my 5 or so rides. To start this off, the layout is fantastic. The 7 inversions all have fantastic whip, the best one being the Batwing. That element is unbelievable. You are slapped with laterals and positive G's. An inversion that surprised me was the final corkscrew. You get great whip there, and every time I rode the coaster, the wait was not that long. The longest I waited was I think 10 minutes, and that's the reason why I got a decent amount of laps on Montu. I also like the use of trenches in the second half. It does feel like your feet are going to graze the ground. I also remember one time where I was riding Crocs while riding Montu, and the little strap that covers the back of your heel was not in sports mode, and I almost lost them, but luckily I didn't. But there's only one coaster that dethrones Montu as the best coaster at Busch Gardens, and no surprise, it's Iron Gwazi. There was no contest here, and this is currently my number 1, and where do I even begin? The standout moment is either the first drop or the death roll. The death roll is a wild inversion. You get strong laterals to the left and right, and you can't forget about about the wave turn, that is also a highlight of the ride. It throws you so unexpectedly and it catches you off guard. And towards the end, it can be a little much if you're in the front, but this happens to me every time. The back of my shirt always lifts up towards the end, and I do have a review for most of these rides. You can check those out in the description. I get more in depth of those coasters I talked about in those videos. And like I said in my review, it's worth the price of admission. So I want to hear from you guys. How would you rank Busch Gardens Tampa's roller coasters? And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. Our goal for this year is to hit 700 subscribers, and I'm putting my trust in you guys to make us hit our goal. I appreciate every subscriber, by the way, and there will be a new video coming out in the next 5 days, so make sure to keep that adrenaline pumping, and thanks for watching.